Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome to GoldwingDocs. You got questions, we got answers. Episode 18 coming up next. My gosh, the sun is just brutal today. It was nice and cool out when I started doing these videos this morning, and it's getting warm. All right, let's get started. First question is from Le Yak. Underneath my shock boot, I saw scoring on the inner cylinder of the air shock with a couple scratches running almost the entire length of the cylinder and deep enough that I can really feel them with my fingernail. One even sort of catches it. See picture. So I'll post a picture here. You can see that here's the picture that he posted when he asked this question. Also, it had virtually no oil left in it. Is this shock done for? All right, so the shock, actually the front forks and the rear shock, have that chromed tube, and that chrome coating is extremely hard, but it's not impervious. So if you get something really hard, in like a quartz crystal, or something, some kind of foreign matter in there that's harder than the chrome, and it gets stuck between the shock and the seal. So here's your seal, and the shock is the shock tube's coming up and down. It gets jammed in there. Now every time you go over a bump, it's going to start scoring and wearing away at that chrome. The problem is the smooth surface of that chrome against the seal is what seals the shock and keeps the oil on the inside. Now when you get a score on the chrome, not only can oil leak through there, but it's going to start wearing away at the seal itself, and now you're going to have oil coming out of the shock and the seals failed. So when the shock gets scored like that, and especially it's deep enough you can actually feel it with your fingernail, is the shock finished? Not necessarily. There's things you can do, and then what I normally will do to get another few years out of a shock that this has happened to is I'll take some JB Weld, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below. JB Weld is just a fantastic all-purpose epoxy, and it's incredibly hard when it cures. So what I'll do is I'll mix up some JB Weld, and I'll just smear it over the shock over that scratch. Now, if the scratch is such where it's actually raised up and it's tearing at the seal, you might want to take some very fine sandpaper and get that lip down. But as long as it's just a divot, a scratch is taken out of the shock, this works just great. Take that JB Weld and you want to smear it all over that section. Of course, you want to remove all oil first and everything from the shock, because the JB Weld won't stick otherwise. So use some brake cleaner and get it really, really pristine and clean. JB Weld on there. Let it cure overnight. You want it really good and hard. And then take some really fine grit. I'm talking like 1500, 2400 grit sandpaper, and you want to sand it down until you get right back to the chrome surface again. You don't want to start sanding on the chrome surface. You don't want it to actually score or sand or abrade that chrome surface. You just want to get rid of all the JB Weld everywhere except for where it's filling up that scratch. The idea being is now you have a nice level surface again. So most of it is chrome, and where that scratch was is a little bit of JB Weld. And that's going to last you quite a while because the JB Weld is very hard. It's not going to last forever. You're probably going to have to redo this kind of thing every 2 to 3 years, depending how much you ride. But I mean, for $5 tube of JB Weld compared to the cost of a new set of air shocks, it might be worth trying. So that's our first question. Matthew Eisenberg has question number 2. I have a 1983 GL 1100 Aspen K. I have a strong smell of gas. There's no leaks and the gas cap feels tight, yet I smell gasoline. Okay, so there's a few different things that can cause this, but generally the main cause of this is pressure in the air tank and the valve in the gas cap. So the gas cap actually has 2 valves in it. One of them allows air into the tank, because obviously when the engine sucks gasoline out of the tank to burn in the engine, you got to replace it with something or else you get a vacuum. So the gas cap has a valve that opens up under vacuum that let air into the tank. Now you don't want to have the gas cap open to the environment, because then air can move in and out freely, including moisture, and you'll end up with moisture in your fuel, which is a bad thing. So the gas cap also has a second valve that will let air out under pressure, because let's say you have a tank full of gas and then you heat up that gas, it's going to expand, and obviously the air that's in there has to go somewhere, so the valve, the gas cap will open up and let it come out. You can have a couple things going on here. You might have a gas valve inside your cap that is open too much, or it's stuck open, so it's allowing a lot of movement in and out of air and gas fumes. You might also be filling the gas tank too much, so that instead of pushing air out, it's actually pushing gasoline out. So make sure you aren't filling your tank all the way right to the very, very top. Leave some airspace in there. If it's still going on, take your gas cap and buy a can of Seafoam. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Put the Seafoam in a bowl and soak your gas cap in it for a night. Put it in there and let it soak overnight. That will get rid of any deposits that may be potentially holding the valve open or closed. If that doesn't do it, you might want to look at a new gas cap. Also, have just a smell around. You might have a leak at a float bowl, fuel line. Just have a sniff around. Make sure there's no actual leaks in around the fuel line, fuel pump, carburetors. Make sure if you can localize the smell of the gas coming from the gas cap, which I think is probably your case, then you know that's fine. But if you have a smell of gas and it's coming out from somewhere down below, you need to really have a look at that. All right, Biggie Cheese 69. Can you help me with my 1976 Goldwing 1000? When I bought it, he said that it sat for a year and it ran before that. When I turn the key, the dash lights come on. When I press the starter, it just clicks and won't start. I got a new battery, solder solenoid, and an ignition coil, but it still won't start. I'm stuck. Is there anything I can do? Please help. Okay, so you've already done quite a bit of the diagnostics. You got a new battery, good. Got a new starter solenoid, yep. Ignition coil, fine. Okay, so you say it's clicking. I'm assuming that's the starter solenoid clicking. If the clicking is actually coming from the starter, the next thing to do is take the spark plugs out of the engine and crank it then, because the engine might be hydrolocked. Hydrolocked is when somebody has left the gas on and the gas has trickled down into the cylinders. Now the cylinders are full of gasoline instead of air. Gasoline does not compress. You can actually destroy your engine by trying to crank it when it's hydrolocked. So if you take out the spark plugs and then crank the engine, it'll eject that gasoline out of the engine and allow it to turn. Make sure the ignition is off when you do this, because if the ignition is on and it sparks when it's ejecting gasoline, it turns your bike into a blowtorch, and that'll be a very bad day for you. So the other thing it could be is the starter itself. So if you take the plugs out and it still just clicks and it's not turning over, then the next thing to look at is the starter. That said, you said it sat for a year and ran before that. You might want to also have a look at the timing belts before you try to start it up. If the timing belts haven't been changed in a while and it sat for a year, it's definitely time to do those belts. If a timing belt fails and you try to start the engine, which it very well could do if it sat for a while, your valves are going to crash into your pistons and basically the engine is scrap. So hopefully that helps you. Mike Bailey, I have a 2008 GL Trike. What oil would you recommend? Mike, I'm sorry, I am not going there, because if anytime anybody asks, what's the best oil to use, it causes a massive war online. People are very opinionated about their oils. I will tell you, the oil I use in mine is Mobil 1 Synthetic. I've used it in my bikes and cars for decades. I'm not saying you should use that or that's better than anything else. Use oil that fits the specification for your bike. If you want to post on the forum and say, hey, what do people use? I'm sure you will get a million answers of people telling what oils they use and what they like and what you should use, but I'm really not going to try and do it here because it causes wars. So any decent name brand oil that is good for a wet clutch motorcycle is going to work great on your bike. If you want to help Mike out and leave a suggestion on your oil of choice, put it in the comments down below. GL Rider 7, why is it when I install and tighten fasteners in order, I can never get the last one to go in or it strips out? Okay, so I included this one because I've had a number of questions like this where I thought it was common knowledge and realized that it's something that I do because I've been wrenching on bikes and cars and things forever, and not everybody has done that their whole life. So when you are installing fasteners, you don't put the first one in and tighten it, and then the next one in and tighten it, and because when you, as you described, when you get to the last one, you realize, oh, it won't go in. So anytime you have something that you're fastening in with multiple fasteners, put in the first one, but don't tighten it. Just put it in part way, and then do the same thing with all the other fasteners. Now that they're all started and the threads are started in, now go tighten all the rest of them, and I think you will find that you will be able to get that last one in and it's not going to strip out. All right, I hope that's of some use to you. If you like what you saw here today, please click like, subscribe, click that little bell. It really helps us out when you do that. Plus, you get notified every time we post one of these amazing videos. Leave a comment in the comments section below if you have any questions or comments about anything we had to say today. And of course, don't forget to check out the GoldwingDocs forum. 91,000 members just like you, Goldwing owners, friendly people. They're just waiting to help you out and say hi. Thanks for watching.